Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. My side, Wakib. So today we're going to be talking about mental health in the Caribbean community featuring Renee Hastick-Motes. And she is the Senior Vice President and Chief External Officer and President of the St. John's Eye Care Foundation with Episcopal Health Services Incorporated and an adjunct lecturer at Hofstra University. She's, of course, the recipient of the Caribbean Life Impact Awards for the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2021 for her 15-plus work years in community and government relations. Additionally, she has collaborated with local community organizations to address and mitigate the stigma associated with mental health. We know all that go. Also, she is the daughter of the late Dr. Roy A. Hastick Sr., who started the Caribbean American Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which put structures in place to serve small business communities in Brooklyn that helped a lot of Caribbean migrants, African Americans, and other minority groups, of course. So thank you so much for being here with us, Renee. I'm so nervous.
For having me.
I'm so happy. I'm sitting here in the room with grades, like a little stressed. So Renee, tell me, growing up in a Caribbean household, what were you taught about mental health, and how were emotional breakdowns dealt with, if any?
I mean, as you know, growing up in a Caribbean household, there's a lot of pride, right? So growing up in the 80s and the 90s, you were never taught about mental health. It wasn't a conversation that we had. It wasn't something that was addressed. When there were mental breakdowns, it was just, back then, children had their place. If you cried, you just cried, and they let you cry, right? You weren't able to really express how you felt back then. But, times have changed, and it just seems like it's a little bit more welcoming these days, right? Back then, children didn't have as much liberty as they have today. They weren't as expressive. They knew kind of what they had to say. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. Keep everything structured. I think that within time, mental health has become more acceptable. And I think that the Caribbean community is accepting it more. And that's, of course, because of COVID. Right?
Yeah. For sure. Because, more than half of mental health issues in adulthood actually start in childhood from childhood trauma. And in adolescence, like if you witness any major traumatic event, within your home or anything like that. And a lot of people, I don't think, know that or even are aware of that.
No. And I think they don't really understand what that looks like. They do say that the first diagnosis is probably diagnosed around 18, 19 years old, right? And that's really an important time in a young person's life. They're really, identifying who they are, coming into their adulthood, and anything can set a break, And I don't think we knew back then what exactly that was or how to deal with it. And I think that because there was such a big push in the media and, taking individuals out of institutional living and putting them into community living, that the awareness and the understanding of mental health just completely changed. So now people have knowledge, right? Yeah. Knowledge is power. And they're able to address it. They're able to deal with it. They're able to recognize in their own children, hey, something may be wrong. I may need them to speak to a counselor or, let me go to their guidance counselor and have a conversation. And I don't think we ever did that back in the day,
Okay, so what prompted you to advocate for mental health within your community?
Well, I worked for a human services organization, and my job was to really work with community leaders and also my organization to destigmatize mental health. Again, it was back then when they were transitioning people out of institutional living and giving them homes in the community. And, I would work with local law enforcement to get them to understand, the patient population that we were dealing with. And, when you think of mental health, you just think of people who, as they say, are out of their mind or, crazy or, things like that. And it's really not. Mental health does not have a distinct look. It doesn't have a distinct ethnicity. It doesn't have a distinct age range. It affects everyone. And I think when people understand that and when they see, how we're dealing with it, and, in today's time, everyone has a counselor, right? Everyone needs to talk to someone. It's different. Some people have a higher, level of dealing with mental illness. And some people really don't really understand how to deal with it, because it ranges. People have needs, and some people don't know how to meet those needs. So it was really through my work.
Yeah.
That I was doing. And we were able to really work with a community advisory committee to really work with our elected officials and NYPD to try to create some type of awareness around mental health. So that was a really interesting journey in time in my career, and I really appreciated that time.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was reading something, and apparently in Jamaica in 2022, in 2020, there were 22 incidents involving the police where persons of unsound mind were shot by the JCF because they just didn't know how to deal with it. There was no training in Jamaica specifically for people to deal with mental health. Because there was an incident some time ago at the airport. There was an American lady. She was on her way back to America, and she was in the airport. I just saw the video from the part where she just stripped down naked completely, and she started screaming.
Wow. And
everybody was staring at her in shock, not knowing what to do. There were no officers around. They were didn't know what to do. And then when people started screaming, all people around her, no, what are you doing? Somebody need to help her. They went to her. One of the officers went to her, grabbed her, and then she started grabbing for his gun. And nobody knew what to do. And mind you, she's naked, so they're I don't want to touch her inappropriately. So there's literally no training. And it's very unfortunate, because you would think they would need to be able to do that, because you're not just dealing with criminals in other ways. You're dealing with people of unsound mind. I need to know how to deal with them, because shooting innocent people is not it.
It's not. And, it's interesting, because even in the work that I do, we had to educate. We had to go out there and tell people, hey, listen, this is the population that you're dealing with. Here's where they're coming from. Here's what they're thinking. Here's how they're feeling. And you don't get that training. I think now there is a lot of training out there in regards to mental health. There's mental health first aid and all of that stuff. So there is training right now. And I think that they have implemented some training with law enforcement agencies. So there is training now, here in New York. But before, there wasn't any training. So you didn't, as you said, you didn't know how to approach that population. And I mean, just think about the work that you do, right? We go to college, we get trained for a specific area, right? We're thinking about journalism, communications, media, and that's just what we're focused on, right? So law enforcement is the same thing. They're focused on, making sure that citizens are abiding by the law, and here's how you're trained. I don't think that I think now, because of, like I said, the awareness and the importance of mental health, that they see the importance and the value. So we used to take time to really go out in the community and bring some of our psychiatrists and some of our social workers to really explain the patient population. And it helps, because when I understand who I'm dealing with, I know how to approach them.
Exactly. I was reading something the other day on NCDA. It was actually in the Jamaica Gleaner. Apparently they held a mental health forum in Jamaica, where they were encouraging the general public that when they do come in contact with somebody that is displaying signs of mental illness, they were explaining them, okay, you should need to offer them support, you need to be respectful, who to call for help, stuff like that. So I see where they're trying to, implement some protocols and how to deal with these things. So it's slow, but, at least there's progress being made.
It's helpful.
Yeah. And there's only one mental health institution in Jamaica. It's called the Bellevue Hospital. It's the only one there. But thankfully, they have managed to, create some sort of mobile care. So they will send out people in buses in communities.
That's important.
To reintroduce these people back into residential areas, residential life, because they're trying to move them out of the institution because they can't house everybody. That's not practical, given that it's only one. So Yeah, there's stuff like that. So I'm happy that there's progress being made and that they're finding innovative ways to like, get it out.
Absolutely.
Because, in the Caribbean, mental health is seen as a sign of madness, and the colloquial term that we use in Jamaica is that you're sick in your head.
Yeah.
So it's used to describe individuals who are mentally challenged, and it's almost seen as a weakness or like a personal failing. So it's really unfortunate. But I want to know, like, how can we work to like destigmatize these issues in the Caribbean and in Caribbean communities here in New York? Like, how do we do that?
I think it's easier now because the conversations are being had around the country, internationally, and in the United States. But I think mostly in the Caribbean, like I said, they're very prideful.
Yeah.
Very structured. Everything has to be in order. And, but I think now, I remember back when I was younger, in middle school, they didn't even think that children had to go to like special education classes, right?
Interesting.
It was a thing. It was stigmatized as well. Like my child is not going to be in no Dunn's class, right? Things like that.
I know, right? Girl.
So it's looking at how we have evolved as a community. We have become more welcoming to understand that we are people, right? I know that there are people in our families that suffer from mental illness, and it could be major, and it could be, very minute. But I think it's becoming more welcoming because of the conversations, because it's just the awareness of it taking place that people are a little bit more accepting. And I think how we can move forward and work on strategies of destigmatizing this in the Caribbean community is continue the conversation.
Yeah.
It starts in the home, right? You're speaking to your children. I always talk to my kids about mental health, as teenagers, raising teenagers, what that looks like and how that affects them, and, taking care of your own self, and once you are modeling the behavior, it will transcend onto others. So I think that continuing the conversation, speaking about it in your home, modeling the behavior, we can be able to change a community. And then if you're in positions of power, implementing opportunities that will allow people to focus on mental health. There's a big connection between mental health and physical health, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I always say, our head is connected to our body, right? Our mental is connected to our physical.
Right.
And so if you're taking care of your mental, you're taking care of your physical. And so people don't see the connection, but there is a connection. And so we need to make sure that we are focusing on having good mental health and good physical health, because that's going to keep us thriving and keep the generations going. Yeah.
It's so interesting how we're so easily to dismiss mental issues because it's not manifesting itself physically. What people are missing is that if you have a mental struggle, it will manifest physically.
Oh, absolutely.
It will manifest in your heart, in your lungs, it can turn into cancer. And it's so interesting that people are not aware of this. They're just immediately dismissing it as, oh, you're sick in your head, or you're mad, or but it's literally connected.
There's many different types, right? So you can even just think of like stress.
Yeah, exactly.
Stress,
anxiety.
Exactly, anxiety. Mentally, you can see the effects in your body, right? You can get to a point where you can gain so much weight because of all those stress hormones in your body that you are looking at yourself in the mirror and say, who is this person, right? And not really understanding that it's really about your mental stability, that it's not healthy. And when you understand that, you focus a little bit more, because by the time it hits you on the outside, it's already affecting you, right, on the inside. So really making sure that you're doing, we talk about self-care, self-love.
It's trending
and all
now.
Of that stuff, right? It's a sexy topic, but it's true. You have to take time out for yourself. You have to be able to, give yourself something. Because it's so important. Like, you have to make sure that you are keeping yourself in a healthy state so that you'll be able to help others.
Yeah, because at Episcopal, I was reading that during COVID, you started an initiative to provide spaces for doctors and nurses to do like Tai Chi and like yoga classes, because to rest, relax, and rejuvenate. Because, it's really important to rest, because we really can't take care of other people without taking care of ourselves first.
Absolutely.
And good God, doctors are always on the go.
Absolutely.
The hospital is always open.
all the time.
So I imagine they would probably be in a lot of distress physically as mentally. So that is amazing. So how would you encourage all the people to continue taking care of their mental health, no matter what business space or art space or whatever type of space they occupy?
So let me just talk about COVID.
Okay.
Right? I think that we were like the only administrative team that was in the hospital, right?
Okay.
During the entire time.
Really?
But it took a lot from everyone, the physicians, the nurses, the administrative staff, everybody. And we noticed that, we did like an after action report and, we noticed that our team members were stressed, they were in there every day, sometimes overnight. Like it was a lot. And we were able to look at that data and say, okay, what can we provide to our team members that would give them the space to get some downtime to reprieve? So our people operations team created like a wellness room where it's just extremely beautiful. You have like this recliner, you can sit back, it's just amazing. We were able to provide yoga opportunities, just anything to give them time to digress. And that really helped, because we're there, we can't go anywhere, right? Because the patients need the clinical staff to take care of them, and they need administration to create the policies to implement so they can take care of them, right? So it was